Let's bring in my colleague, the man with the mic there, MS Now's Nnamdi Egwuonwu. And you saw him speaking there with the candidates. I want you to jump in a little bit more on that. But we've got the Democratic strategist, Sawyer Hackett, here as well, and former Michigan Republican Congressman Fred Upton. Nnamdi, first, here in these closing now 36 hours, what's the closing pitch?
You know, it's interesting. A defining feature of this race has been the amount of money that's been poured into it. You know, Abdul El-Sayed has made that the crux of his message, trying to reject the influence of corporations and corporate PACs in elections. But also on the ground this weekend, we saw the impact of that outside spend, specifically on advertisements in areas like Wayne County, where, you know, Detroit generally has been inundated with advertisements largely in favor of Haley Stevens, but also several that just outright oppose Abdul El-Sayed. So in these closing days, what I've seen is that there's been a focus by Dr. Abdul El-Sayed in correcting the narratives, or at least combating the narratives that had been perpetuated through those advertisements. I saw him across visits to several black churches yesterday point out, for instance, that one ad suggesting that he's disrespected women is inaccurate. Another one saying he's disrespected the Obamas is inaccurate, and really make that a centerpiece, in addition to just introducing himself to people that may only know him through those advertisements. But also, when I was with Haley Stevens, we saw the power of her ad support. I want to play you a conversation with one of her supporters who really knew Stevens primarily through the TV screen. Take a listen.
We see her on TV and how Obama was saying that she helped keep the auto industry here in Michigan open. It made me very happy to see that, because my husband was he retired. He was able to stay there and retire.
So I asked that Stevens supporter why she hadn't, if she considered Abdul El-Sayed, why she's not supporting him. And what she said is she just didn't know him. She hasn't seen him on TV. But get this, when Abdul El-Sayed went to speak at that black church yesterday and introduced himself to those people, he changed some minds. I want to play you a conversation I had with someone who heard him speak at church, so you can get a sense of just how much that visit meant. Take a listen.
His remarks were excellent, just what I needed to hear to make the right decision. Absolutely. He gave me confidence that he's not the person that they said he was. It changed my whole perspective on him.
And Vaughn, that's really what it's going to come down to. It's a question of whether or not Abdul El-Sayed's ground game can overcome Haley Stevens' outside advertising support. He certainly is putting in the work. He had double the amount of public events than Stevens this past weekend, but ultimately both of these candidates working to turn out the vote all across this state ahead of that competitive primary election tomorrow.
Sawyer, you know, oftentimes in races, they get distilled down to one issue, it seems like. In this race, there's just a vast number of debates happening simultaneously on the domestic front, the economic front, but also when it comes to America's foreign engagement and the financial investment of the U.S. government in what's happening overseas. And I'm hoping that you can answer for me the extent to which you see this Michigan Senate primary being extrapolated nationwide in a conversation that exists around Abdul El-Sayed being very clear that he does not support unconditional aid going to Israel, but then also $30 million of AIPAC money going to Haley Stevens' campaign. And understanding that these conversations and this debate, it stirs up very visceral, just reactions and engagement by the electorate. To what extent should people be looking at the results of this race nationwide?
Yeah, I mean, I think this race has become kind of a petri dish for testing out the different visions for the future of the Democratic Party. And I think one very clear dividing line, litmus test between the two candidates here is the question of Israel and you know, support from AIPAC. And clearly, both candidates, I mean, Abdul has really tried to put that front and center as he's facing, you know, some $30 million in spending from AIPAC. But really, if you look at the polls, you know, there was a recent poll from the Detroit News that showed that, you know, voters rating this issue, this question of support for Israel and support from AIPAC, a 5.6 out of 10. So it's not the sole issue motivating voters to get to the polls. It really comes back to affordability. And, you know, that dividing line between the two candidates on affordability is just as apparent. You have Abdul kind of leading with these populist, aggressive policies to improve people's, you know, quality of life and the amount of money that they can save in the midst of Donald Trump skyrocketing your prices. I think voters are looking for an alternative who's going to fight back with kind of bolder solutions to address these problems. And it looks like just in this respect, Abdul is the bigger fighter in that.
And polling has shown him up by as much as 15 percentage points. Of course, tomorrow will tell us the actual results. But is this an issue that, Haley Stevens this weekend sort of surprisingly suggested in a tweet that was quite explicit, saying that he likes to blame all America's problems on Jewish people? Is that an issue that can be overcome in a general election where they frankly need both each other's supporters to turn out?
Yeah, I don't think it's wise for Haley Stevens to be trying to make those accusations this late in the game. I mean, this is a very late primary, and it's going to be difficult for the two sides to kind of reconcile their differences ahead of the general election. And I think by kind of playing into that trope that he's pushing out this anti-Israel message, it's really going to inflame a lot of those tensions that we saw kind of surfacing, in 2024 with the Michigan uncommitted demographic. And so, I think we're all going to have to do our parts to bring the two coalitions together. And I think both candidates have pledged to work on behalf of the nominee. I would like to see a little bit less of this kind of last minute punching from both sides of the equation in the party.
Fred, former congressman, we talked outside of the Capitol back in 2022, right as you were retiring. And you had made an effective decision at a time in which Donald Trump was trying to oust people in his party that were not essentially in lockstep with him. And it's something that Mike Rogers used to be kind of a congressman of your ilk, if I may, in pushing back against sometimes Trump's words and his own policies even. But now he's trying to walk that line of bringing folks in while also appealing to Democratic and independent voters. And that's why I was struck by this weekend, this advertisement that I want folks to look at that he launched against El Sayed specifically. Take a listen.
Never see us coming. They really think we're just Democrats.
I'm looking forward to what Mike Rogers thinks he's going to do, and if he thinks the best he can do is an AI video of turning me into Odysseus, then, man, it's going to be a fun 13 weeks.
Congressman El Sayed, you heard him there. He does have progressive endorsements, but he's distanced himself from the Democratic Socialists of America. And Republicans for years have threatened that Democrats want to eliminate a free economy and take away individual freedoms. Despite all this, is this the most effective messaging for Mike Rogers in the year of 2026 in a 3-month campaign if El Sayed is the nominee?
Well, look, the issue, first of all, it's good to see you again. This is going to be a heavyweight fight for sure. I mean, you're going to, if El Sayed wins, and most pundits say that he is, I don't think it'll be double digit. I think it'll be a lot closer than that. But you're going to have a progressive, in essence, Bernie AOC candidate on the left. And you're going to have Mike Rogers, who now is really a MAGA candidate, with not a lot of time to go. There's going to be a hell of a lot of money that's going to be spent between now and November 4th, for sure. But, traditionally in these races, to win the primary, people go right or left, depending Republican or Democrat, and then they try to come back to the middle to pick up the moderate votes. That can't happen now. They've crossed that line, and the ads are going to be. Frankly, I thought Mike Rogers' ad that we saw this weekend was pretty clever. You're going to see a lot of clever ads on both sides trying to attract the votes to get there in November, and it's going to be a nasty punch battle all the way to the finish line. Mike, of course, has the real advantage in that he didn't have a primary. But, we've seen El Sayed. I mean, we've seen his ads over here in West Michigan. We've not seen too many Haley Stevens activities at all. But, she's outspent El Sayed almost 10-1, I think, when things are all said and done, or maybe 5-1 at the end of the day. We'll see if that money works. But Michigan, it's a purple state.
It's a purple state, and I can't help but think about a conversation I had just yesterday with Debbie Dinkle, your former Democratic colleague, and she told me that she was disappointed in Mike Rogers. He's calling him and his wife her friends at one point. And my question for you is, longtime Republican yourself, somebody who could easily sway this election, what is your calculus in terms of who you vote for in November? Is there a chance that you would vote for Haley Stevens or Abdul El Sayed over your former colleague Mike Rogers?
Well, Mike Rogers is a dear friend. I know his wife well. We've done social events together. His son went to the Naval Academy, Jonathan. I mean, just a really outstanding family. He was one of my subcommittee folks when I chaired the Energy and Commerce Committee. We go back. I saw him a few weeks ago at a funeral for a good friend of ours. I've given Mike a couple $1,000. I mean, I'm for Mike Rogers. But I think that the pundits are right that Stevens likely has the better chance of winning than El Sayed. But it's going to, this is going to be a heavyweight bout. I mean, there's going to be a lot of punches that are thrown. And at the end of the day, it's who's going to turn out their voters. And you're going to have a lot of voters, I think, turned off by negative ads, which is why Mike Rogers' ad this weekend was really pretty clever. They're going to want to use that imagination on these ads to paint each other in a particular corner.